Isaiah chapter 53 presents a profound prophecy about the suffering servant, who is identified as the one who will bear the sins of the people. The chapter begins by describing how the servant will be despised and rejected by humanity, and how he will be looked down upon as insignificant. Despite his humble appearance and rejection by society, the servant's role is central to God's plan of salvation. The people will not recognize the significance of his suffering, and they will fail to understand that he is suffering on their behalf. The chapter continues by explaining that the servant's suffering is not because of his own wrongdoing but because of the sins of others. He is pierced for the transgressions and crushed for the iniquities of the people. His punishment brings peace and healing to those who have strayed from God, for through his wounds, they are restored. The people are described as sheep who have gone astray, each turning to their own way, but the Lord has laid the iniquity of all upon the servant. This section emphasizes the sacrificial nature of the servant's suffering, as he bears the punishment that rightfully belongs to others. Isaiah 53 then speaks of the servant's silent endurance in the face of injustice. Despite being oppressed and afflicted, the servant does not open his mouth in protest. He is compared to a lamb led to the slaughter, suffering quietly without resistance. This highlights his role as the ultimate servant who willingly sacrifices himself for the sake of others. The chapter emphasizes the innocence of the servant, stating that there was no deceit in his mouth, yet he was unjustly treated and executed. His suffering is presented as an act of divine purpose, fulfilling God's plan for atonement. The final verses of Isaiah 53 describe the ultimate triumph of the servant. Though he is cut off from the land of the living and thought to be forsaken, his sacrifice will lead to great reward. Through his suffering, he will see the fruit of his work, and many will be made righteous. The servant's offering for sin will justify many, and God will reward him for his obedience. The chapter concludes by affirming that the servant's suffering was not in vain. It was the means by which God's will was accomplished, leading to the salvation of many and the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan. Let's now read Isaiah chapter 53. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs, and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray, we have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him, he hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. This ends our reading of Isaiah chapter 53.